Hello, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Impact Money Show. You're watching on your TVs in Texas and Louisiana on the Smart Money Culture TV network, as well as joining from around the world on YouTube and Rumble and LinkedIn and Facebook and all the rest of them, Instagram and all those. We have an exciting show today. There is a lot going on. We are 6 days. We are 6 days from the biggest and most exciting election of our lifetimes. What will happen? What is happening? I'll tell you what, there's lots of irregularities. We're going to look into those in just a second here as we move forward. I'll tell you what, it's like I've said for quite a while now. Do you guys really think that we can vote our way out of this? It seems too easy. It seems too easy just to be able to vote our way out of this. I don't know, guys. I mean, I hope we can vote our way out of it. We're going to find out. But a lot of the stuff unfolding that you see, I mean, we have people that are getting turned away at the polls. They're closing early. You have the cops coming out there on camera, supposed to close at 4:30, and they're closing at 1:45. You have ballots that are getting lost and found. Oh, they dropped off the truck. You have ballot boxes burning. In Nevada, I think it is, they've decided that ballots that show up late after the date with no dates on them, they have to get accepted and counted. If there's no date, then how can they know if they were there or not? So they have to be counted. I'll tell you what, guys, this is stuff that if it went on in Venezuela, as you saw, oh, this is not true. And actually, look at what just happened in Georgia as well. Georgia voted to not do the EU, to get out of the EU, not go along with their central banking cartel shenanigans. And you have NATO and the US and the EU and everybody telling them, you guys, they're like trying to cause a civil war over there. How dare you guys vote out of this? This was a rigged election. I think no matter what happens, they're going to say this is a rigged election. Doesn't matter who wins. And they're probably right. I think we've gone past the point of having any sort of real election. How can you have a real election when you have magic electronic voting machines and ballot boxes? Ballot boxes. Like, how in the world can you just have a drop box? No, there is no, they're not checking IDs. They have people coming in and voting, and they're like bringing them in on buses. They have people bringing them in on buses, and they're not requiring any type of ID. And actually, these people, I'm sure they all have IDs. They've given them. That's what I've been saying for a while. People are like, they're here illegally. I'm like, well, they're not really here illegally anymore. They crossed illegally, but now they have legal status. So this is the infamous burning ballot box. Look at this thing. Oh, yeah, look at that. Oh, yeah. Official drop box. Yeah, check it out. There's your vote. I mean, this is like craziness. Let's see here. This was buses at poll at voting. Let me see if that brings up anything here. We have buses coming in. Okay. This is very suspicious. Very suspicious. 2 charter buses turned into the area of our voter site. Here's a video about it, and then a video of the charter bus. They were full of people, she says.
I videotaped. What kind of shenanigans did I just see? On my way home from work today, I had 2 bus loads of charter buses of people turn in front of me and go down the road towards the election spot. I videotaped it. It's probably poor quality. I tried. I have no idea. There's only a school down that street and the library for voting. Where are they coming from and what are they about? I turned around, I went back, and I tried to find them. They weren't in the library section, but they were back in the school section. This is at 5 o'clock at night. The school is let out already. It's not that far from it, but I think on that second video that you'll see, that if you look back in the back, you'll see the charter buses. What are they? It's a Monday. This is crazy. It's
Here's this is here. That she thinks are going in to vote. And I mean, probably she's right. I mean, who knows, right?
all around charter.
It's not hard to rig our elections, guys.
2 busloads.
2 bus
all
loads.
around charter. The voting place is right up the street here. They're being bussed in. Can't tell what the green license plate is, but literally 2 charter buses. See them both? 2 charter buses being chartered in to the voting.
2 buses chartered in to the voting. She said. I switched it right there at the end. But I wanted to show this one as well. I'm a little bit worried about, let me see here. Buses of non-English speaking citizens fast-tracked ahead of Americans waiting in line for hours to vote early. This guy's, I've seen this video. This guy's going to come on and talk about it, I think. Where's it? Yeah.
No, they had these people. They had about 12 of them walked in. They were all foreigners, and then they took them up. These younger people helped them to fill out. They say vote PA today,
Yep.
and then
Vote
they took
today,
them up,
PA. Yep.
and somehow they beat a 2-hour line, and then they walked up, and the one lady, they were even asking her, they're like, "We don't have you in the system. Your name's not right." And they're like, "Oh, well, we'll take it back and change it."
Yeah.
How do you change your damn name?
Exactly. Yeah. Well, thank you.
The footage you just saw is from Bethel, Pennsylvania, the key battleground state today, where a busload of non.
Love Alex Jones. So this is happening.
No, they had these people.
Like I said, it doesn't take much to alter the election in the right place. Okay. We have a situation where, Trump won. I'm almost like remembering these numbers now. I don't even have to look. So Trump, when he won Pennsylvania, he won by about 10,000 votes. When he lost Pennsylvania, he lost by like 120,000 votes. Okay. But I mean, still like 120,000 votes. I mean, when you're talking about, however many votes, 5 million or 6 million or 3 million or whatever it is, that's not much. Okay. It's easy. It's easy. North Carolina is slim margins, like 60,000 votes. Michigan, again, like, we're talking like 50,000 votes, winning and losing by. So that's what I've been saying the whole time too, is with this 20 million quote unquote newcomers that have come in. I mean, Tucker told us it's 20 million. It's 20 million. And that's why it's really hard for me to get, upset. You are delusional. Well, all right. I mean, so the videos you think are fake? Those are fake videos? That's not real what we just watched. It's like I just put up actually on my X feed last night. The famous Giuliani ended up getting in all kinds of trouble for calling them the bank heist videos, right? I mean, the guy has basically just been sued, blued, and tattooed, right? But if you look right here, I mean, this is all the people stuffing the drop boxes. And this is not even, this is just the drop boxes. Okay. This is not the famous bank heist videos where they were taking the ballots and it appears, rerunning them through the machine. Remember, they took them from underneath the thing there, underneath the desk, and then it appears that they reran them. But this is all the people stuffing, or it appears to be stuffing the ballots. This is from 2020. Now, of course, we weren't even really allowed to talk about this stuff before Trump bought X, or bought Twitter, which is now X. Let's see here. Bank heist. Maybe that'll bring it up. Oh, yeah. Here we go. So this is not bringing up the video, or the video is not playing, I should say. It might be actually the video, but then it bank heist video. It's not playing. Maybe it'll be in here, my friend. Ooh, page can't be found. Look at that. All right. Anyway, don't believe what you see, right? So we have a lot of stuff going on. I think, hopefully we are going to, you don't even know what we watched. You're creating content without any something or the other. Well, I mean, it sure looks to me like they were putting a lot of more than one ballot in the box. I mean, wouldn't you say that? I mean, here, I'll pull it up again. It looks to me like they're stuffing more than one ballot in the box. Yeah, share that again. I mean, look, I don't know. Maybe that's not what they're doing. But that's what it looks to me like they're doing. Here, let's watch it again. Look at all these videos we have here. Maybe. I mean, watch their hands. Like, what are they doing? How many ballots are they stuffing in there? It's a lot of ballots. Right? I mean, it looks like to me. Sure looks like a lot of ballots to me. Anyway. So, as I've said for a long time, and that's why it's really hard for me to get wrapped around the axle about this whole thing, because the Republicans didn't do anything about the magic electronic voting machines. They didn't do anything about the mail-in ballots. How do you know they were all demonic Democrat voters? I don't. Maybe they were Republican. But I think that we can both agree that people shouldn't be stuffing ballot boxes like that. Right? I mean, that's pretty alarming, wouldn't you say? People shouldn't be stuffing ballots like that. But people should not be doing that. I think there is a problem. But Trump pushed the idea that it must all have been against him. Well, I mean, Hillary Clinton pushed the idea that the Russians hacked the election when she lost. I mean, yeah, that's what you do when you lose, right? I mean, he lost. So, I mean, officially, whether he lost or not. So, of course, why did you lose? Well, look, we have these videos of people stuffing ballots. I mean, yeah, I mean, that's what you do. Why did you lose? Well, here's some evidence. Maybe this is why. But the Republicans did nothing. They did absolutely nothing And that's why, again, it's hard for me to get wrapped around the axle about this election. And it's why I keep telling everybody too, whatever happens, life is going to go on. Whether we get Kamala or we get Trump, life's going to go on. And the Republicans, if they think that they're going to fight this out in the courts, are like, I don't know what they are. Like, why in the world would you feel like you're going to be able to fight this out in the courts when you have all the same judges who wouldn't even hear the cases? Anyway, let's talk about the markets. The markets are pretty interesting right now, doing pretty well. Hopefully you caught some of that up movement. I have the market watch report here from the great Matt Dixon. Sir Matt the Great. Let me just share this tab. There we go.
Hello, Bruce, and hello, Impact Money viewers. So welcome to a new show. We've had some amazing action, haven't we, over the past couple of days? So obviously Bitcoin, in fact, I'm just going to flip over to Bitcoin just to see where we're at. I mean, we've basically touched previous all-time high there, almost. In fact, I think it's exactly, which is really interesting. Now, potentially, this is actually an A down, a B up, and a C down. So the beginning of the A actually started at the previous all-time high. I'm just going to tune in and see exactly what that was. So that was 73,777, and the high yesterday was 73,620. So we were just a whisker from the previous all-time high. Now that is actually very typical of a potential ABC. It doesn't mean it definitely is. There's still potential to break higher. But remember, I've been saying this for some time, that the previous all-time high, we would need to break through, probably retest what was overhead resistance and then become support and then push on higher. So far, we've been rejected by the previous all-time high. That's potentially very telling with all the news that we've had going on. Obviously, we've got the election now, countdown to the election, just days away, really. Same with interest rate decision, just a matter of days away. And we've had some resolution to the Israel problem with Iran, but Iran have said they're going to retaliate to Israel at some point. So let's just see what happens there. Let's hope that we get some enduring, lasting peace process and we don't get any more trouble there. But it's still a risk in the sort of a risk that's there that we need to be aware of. And we have been climbing that wall of worry. All these risks have been there, you know, the risks, the uncertainty of the election outcome, as I say, interest rate uncertainty. And we've got, I think it's actually today, we've got GDP figures due for release. Let's just see how they are. If the GDP figures are higher than expected, then that could potentially put a dampener on reducing interest rates in a week's time. So there's a lot to play for. And at the moment, as I say, I actually think it's a really good area for risk reward. Clearly, it could turn into a loss if you were to put a short trade on here. But the stop loss will be relatively close, just above here, just above the overhead resistance. Could have a stop loss overhead with potential fair amount of downside. So there are obviously potential losses, but the losses should be limited if you manage your risk reward effectively. So I think it's basically a trade crying out to be done. And I'll just flip around the cryptos, I think, first of all, before we go into those traditional assets. So a very similar story for Solana, not quite the same. Obviously, we're not at all-time highs. And that's the same with a lot of tokens. We'll have a quick look at Ethereum as well today. Ethereum is way off its all-time high. Solana is still way off its all-time high. $258 is all-time high. We're on 178 today. So we're $70 away from all-time high, a long way from all-time high. Yet Bitcoin is sitting on its previous all-time high. So that just shows you the impetus, the impact really that we've had from the Bitcoin ETF. That it has channeled a lot of capital into Bitcoin, a lot of institutional capital. So we had all of that retail phase of adoption, which took us to that first of 69,000. We fell back a long way. and then we, to the FTX low 15,004 or whatever it was, and then challenging that new all-time high again based on institutional adoption. And the potential is, I don't really see that turning around. I think Bitcoin is a store of value, and it's become recognized as a store of value amongst even institutions now. And so I think there's a great future ahead for Bitcoin, even if we get a further correction. Again, we said it could go higher. We could get a pullback first before it goes higher. But at some point, we should push to new all-time highs. And I think that's off the back of, obviously, that limited supply. The fact that if America were to dip into recession, and we've explored that in the past few shows, looking at basically still elevated inflation, but and we've got high interest rates to try to tackle that. They are lowering rates, but potentially a slowing economy. Certainly, we're seeing the rest of the world slowing. We need to see what happens with America. With the election may have some impact. I think it'll be a short-lived impact. Personally, I think it will have an impact. The outcome, probably a substantial short-term impact, but long-term, I'm not sure whether it will have an enduring effect. But even so, it will have an effect short-term on prices. So the fact that everything is kind of priced in at the moment, priced in for good, really. So I think we've got to buy the rumor, sell the news event lining up. So buying the rumor is the rumor of everything turning out well with the election, with interest rates, etc., even with Israel, Iran, and maybe even with, we may see some further resolution now with Russia, Ukraine. Yet to see, but I think there's some noises afoot that Russia are looking for some kind of settlement because they're under a lot of pressure with the ongoing conflict. So all this news is basically rumor. So people are buying the rumor. Once it actually happens, even if it happens for good, then there could be a sell the news effect, and that could give us the next leg down. But as I say, it's not final. That's not the final move. I do think that we're going to push to new all-time highs. Certainly for Bitcoin, and I think we'll challenge all-time highs for a lot of other cryptos. And one of the most promising is, of course, Solana. As I'm always saying, it's the retail chain of choice, as I've said so many times. It's got amazing functionality. It's got amazing transaction speed. It's minimal cost, great security. I think it's got a tremendous future. And, it's all the memes, or most of the memes, are based on Solana. So even Pump.fun, which, as we saw, was a massive business, was all based on the Solana ecosystem. Ethereum, I think, is personally, I just wonder whether Ethereum's had its day. Now, clearly, that doesn't mean it's a dead token. Clearly, it still has massive use case. It's actually the main token that's used in the RWA tokenization. I think it's the protocol E1400. And that's what's used at the moment. But I think that that's all fully priced into Ethereum. And the fact that Ethereum is still a relatively slow chain, it's still relatively, or it is actually very, very expensive on gas fees still, despite the upgrades and changes they've had. There are cheaper, better, quicker, faster, whatever alternatives available. So this is why I think that we're seeing Ethereum, only a little over 50% of its previous all-time high, whereas Bitcoin is basically about 100% of its previous all-time high. So Ethereum is really lagging. And also, if we look at Ethereum here, certainly we do appear to have three waves down, but even this move up here appears to be a consolidation pattern waiting for further downside. So all this overlap tells me at the moment it does not look impulsive to the upside, because this overlap is telling you it's corrective to the upside. So from here, clearly price has moved up, but in very, very much overlapping fashion. And so I would think, somewhere around these sort of levels, we probably get another leg down for Ethereum. Now that would be, I do think Ethereum obviously is still going to be continue to be an actively traded token, but I just think that it's lost its shine, it's lost its real luster. And I do think that some of the alternative tokens available out there may gradually start to replace the use cases that Ethereum has. So Ethereum's not one of my favorite holdings. Even from a trading perspective, it's very, very muted. And one of the reasons that we like to trade crypto is because it has amazing volatility, liquidity, etc. And we're just not seeing the sort of volatility in Ethereum that we're seeing across other very liquid tokens, even Bitcoin, for example. Solana, Toncoin is pretty active. Sui, another great one. So these are great tokens with great liquidity, great volatility, and that's what traders are looking for. And we're beginning to lose that. Even I think XRP is kind of going down the same road, that it's lacking volatility. Again, if I just flip into XRP, once again we see this choppy, very, very choppy corrective kind of movement here. We've had a move up here, all this choppiness. Whether it's over or not, I'm not sure. I mean, it did actually reach pretty much my initial target. We can see I had an arrow down here. We had an ABC high with an arrow down, but I'm still not convinced that we won't go lower, because this all appears to be very, very corrective in nature for the time being. So something fundamental needs to happen. You can see even from this local high here, which was actually when we got the SEC news out, which was good news for XRP at the time, and it caused this massive pump in price to 93 cents, I think it was. Since that, we've done nothing but falling and sideways action. So at the moment, I don't have any great confidence. And again, we came from a much lower level, very choppy upside. Even if we do push higher and get an amazing rally with Bitcoin, which would carry, a rising tide lifts all ships, as we say. So the rising tide being driven by Bitcoin would lift all ships, which would include XRP, would include Ethereum, would include all the other tokens, most of the other tokens at least. But they're very much limited. So actually, I'm very much in favor of Bitcoin at the moment, but also if I'm trading actively, I want volatile tokens with liquidity, which is why I like Solana, Toncoin, Sui, tokens like that, really, which seem to have more volatility, more opportunity for profit. So that's as much of the crypto that I really want to cover today. I will just touch into Tesla. That was quite an interesting chart, I think. We did tick above the previous level, but what was interesting, so this was we got the earnings data from Tesla, which was not the earnings, but the actual earnings per share beat expectations. So I think it's been on the back of cost cutting, which was seen as a good thing, and we've got this massive pump. Now, there's a couple of things we can notice from this chart. When you see gaps in the market, usually those gaps are filled. And so we saw, obviously, we've got a gap lower that was filled higher, but now we've had a gap higher, which theoretically is virtually always filled with price traversing that gap. So that would tell us that potentially there is some downside to come on Tesla, despite that amazing earnings news we had. And it's actually very interesting to note here that whilst we did pass the previous high here, it was only a spike high and price didn't close above it. And that's very important to watch closing levels on prices. We're looking here at the daily chart. And if you don't have a daily close above the previous level, so for example, the pivot high here, then that's telling you that theoretically speaking, we didn't really break that high because we didn't manage to close above it. Yes, price tested above briefly, but didn't close above it on a daily closing candle. And so that's actually a little bit of a negative sign, telling us that potentially a bit of downside to come for Tesla there. Again, I will just go back to some of those traditional assets. We've seen DXY. Again, these technicals are so very, very important. So when I say important, we need to take note of them, but obviously take them in context of everything else. So I did say that, again, we can see here that the previous high here, pivot high here, was tested twice and failed. And so at the moment, it's looking like we might see a bit of weakness. And maybe this is ahead of expectations that we're going to see an interest rate cut. But there's quite a bit of news to come out before that interest rate decision next week. And so we need to see what that news is. Obviously, we've got GDP, we've got jobs figures, we've got, I think we've got PCE. So there's, a lot of important news to come out, which will actually inform the Fed very much on the decision that they're going to take, and obviously inform us on the trades that we're going to take. So we need to keep close eye on the information. And I did cover that. I don't think I will just dip into my X feed just to show you some of those news items that we'll be looking for. So obviously that was the odds of recession. They're actually relatively high. The Fed themselves say there's quite a high chance of recession, 56% chance of recession, which is well above halfway, and that's got to be concerning in itself. We've got non-farm payrolls this Friday, I think, so we need to watch those very, very carefully. Yeah, 1st of November. We can see the non-farm payrolls, the numbers have been declining consistently now for a year. This is why the Fed, I believe, why the Fed have been reducing rates, why they reduced by 50 basis points, why they're almost definitely going to reduce by another 25, because they're very concerned about employment. And if the employment figures are declining consistently, and that's going to be a concern for them. So those will be figures to watch out for Friday, could cause a potential turn in the market. Halloween tomorrow, that is. We've got PCE tomorrow, so that's very important. Fed's preferred measure of inflation. Let's just see where that's at. I think they're expecting another tick up in inflation. So that's telling us that Fed are potentially looking at reducing rates while inflation is picking up. Doesn't really make sense. So as I say, they're between a rock and a hard place. Going to be a very, very difficult decision. And again, there have been very, very important decisions this year, a lot hanging on them. There's an awful lot hanging on this because the Fed are obviously seeking to get a soft landing for the economy. And at the moment, with those employment figures, maybe that's not happening. But they're within touching distance. They're kind of still within the Goldilocks zone. The growth is still reasonably robust. Inflation isn't running away crazily out of control, but there are dangers on both sides of the equation. So that's why the Fed and why we're watching the Fed so closely. Then obviously GDP figures, I think they're out today actually, expected to come in at 3%. I think this is the estimate again. So that will have an impact on prices, especially if it comes out higher than expected, then make it more difficult for the Fed to actually reduce rates. And fear and greed, I don't know quite where fear and greed is today. Be interesting to look. I'm sure it's ticked up higher, probably getting more towards extreme greed. I haven't checked the figures today, but probably more towards extreme greed. So we need to watch that carefully. So as I say, dollar index potentially getting at least a short-term turn down, but this move up looks at the moment to be relatively impulsive. So I think any move down might be temporary, and we'll probably get another move up at some point. If we get dollar index running away too strongly, that's obviously going to be negative risk assets, but that hasn't happened as yet. We've had a bit of a move up, but nothing major. Oil price, if I can just find oil price, as Bruce was saying, dipped substantially lower. Again, we've got a gap in the oil price there. So theoretically, probably, we're going to see oil price tick up, maybe short term to fill that gap. But I think potentially we've still got more downside to come. So if economies are slowing down, that means there's going to be less demand for oil. Then the supply of oil is potentially ticking up higher. Saudi Arabia have mooted that they're potentially going to be increasing production, along with other OPEC nations, going to be increasing production in December. So that would mean effectively more supply, decreased demand. That's why oil price right now is going down. But remember, markets look ahead. So what the markets are seeing is what I'm just explaining to you now about basically potentially reduced demand and increased supply. That's what's driving. But remember, it's often buy the rumor, sell the fact, or sell the rumor, buy the fact, either way around, whichever it is, they go oppositely. So here we've got sell the rumor, it's going to be buy the fact, I think, when it actually happens. So whilst we're seeing weaker oil prices now, when the news actually hits, usually you see a reversal, which is counterintuitive, but it's just the way the markets tend to work. They're forward looking. And so everything when it happens has already been discounted. So let's just see what else we have a look at. I want to just check on DXY, not DXY, sorry, SPX. SPX again, playing around with all-time highs. We may see even further all-time highs. So at the moment, things are still looking, as I say, still looking reasonably good, but we do have that regular bearish divergence in place on the S&P 500. That's basically where you have higher highs in price and lower highs in corresponding RSI. That's telling you potentially more downside to come. So I do think short term, as I said with Tesla, and a lot of the assets really, and here with SPX, the S&P 500, I do think that this indicator here is telling us likely we're going to see more downside, At least one more wave down. So even if it's just a 3-wave move down, I still think that that's not complete, and we have more downward movement to come to complete that. But probably then after that, we will get some more upside to come. As I say, I still think 6,000's on the cards at some point in time. Not quite sure when. Let's just have a quick look at Toncoin again while we're here. Back to the crypto a little bit. Yeah, Toncoin again, looking reasonably bullish at the moment. So we basically had what appears to be some kind of 5-wave move higher, a 3-wave move down. So potentially, Toncoin is one of my favorite coins at the moment. I think it's got great fundamentals, world record for transaction speed, great liquidity, great token. So if you're going into crypto, it's one of my favorites to trade. Not giving you any advice, obviously you make your own decisions whether to buy or sell, but it's looking one among cryptos on a comparative basis. And actually some people do just trade within crypto and trade comparatively. So they look for strong tokens traded against weak tokens, and that's the way they trade to build up their crypto portfolio on a comparative basis. And long term, that's actually been a pretty amazing strategy if you'd followed that. So one that we could perhaps examine more closely at some point. As I say, SUI is very interesting. It's one of the tokens, along with Aptos, that came off Meta. If you remember, Meta was the Facebook attempt at a crypto stablecoin, I think. And these two tokens, Aptos and SUI, came out of that. Both amazing tokens, got great potential. Just finally, we'll dip into the currencies. So again, we're seeing dollar yen. As I've always said, as long as dollar yen is heading higher, that's good for risk assets, and that's what we're seeing. Keep extending this. We're not over yet. Looks, potentially, yeah, I'd have to re-examine this on a shorter time frame to look at the actual, but potentially we are still moving higher on dollar yen, which is good for risk assets. It's the carry trade, of course, where people borrow from the yen, 0 interest rates, and they invest into higher risk currencies or opportunities, assets like cryptocurrency. And that's the way they make their money. But when it turns around, it can turn very, very quickly, because you've got 2 factors which can drive it down. People need to repay their yen borrowings very, very quickly. And so money piles back into the US dollar. When you see a rising US dollar, it's also negative for risk assets. So there's a multiple sort of nasty sort of what do I call it really? Sort of confirming anyway, 2 factors which actually conform to bring the price down of assets potentially. So that's it for today. As I say, unfortunately, I've got to head off to meetings again. There's loads more we can talk about. Please do ask if there's any particular token. Sorry, there's one other I was asked about. I'll just see if I've got it here. I was asked about ICP, and I'm sure I've got ICP up as a token. I'm just looking for it. Yeah, ICP here. So people are asking, why is ICP still in the doldrums? Well, once again, we're seeing the action, the price action on ICP looking for the past few months now. You can see it's been corrective higher and it's corrective down as well. But basically, corrective higher means it's not impulsive higher. So even if we were to push higher, it's only going to be relatively short term, most likely. And that would mean that we still have potentially, there will be lower prices to come at some point. So that's why ICP is not taking off. Also, whilst the technology has been innovative and really interesting and ahead of its, ahead of the field in many, many ways, even so, there's a lot of competitors out there that are doing things that ICP have been trying to do and possibly doing them more efficiently. And especially as ICP came from so much of a higher level, there's been a massive loss of interest in the token since the price has come down so much. And that's why it's not managed to carry through with the likes of Bitcoin. So there's a real divergence here between Bitcoin being the store of value which has been adopted by institutions and the rest of crypto, which is actually seeing a lot of new cryptos coming through, taking the place of the older cryptos, which at the time were innovative and amazing. But technology moves forward and cryptos, new cryptos with better use cases, better utility are being created all the time. And that's why you need to keep up to date with these things, and why it's important to listen to things like this show and other shows that are put out there just to see what the latest developments are within crypto, because you need to stay informed to stay ahead of the game. So thank you again for listening. Thank you, Bruce, for the opportunity. Look forward to catching up tomorrow, and bye for now.
The great Matt Dixon there with the Market Watch Report. It is always a pleasure to work with Matt. Matt is his analysis is bar none. Hopefully I'll see him actually in a very shortly there in Dubai. We'll see how that works out. I may be going back to my favorite place. I love Dubai. Dubai, you know that they mopped the sidewalks in Dubai? No gum on the ground there. And it's not like Singapore. Singapore, you're actually not allowed to chew gum. Now, of course, me being the American, I got off the plane. I popped a piece of gum in my mouth. And I walked through customs and everything else just to make sure. Is this real? And then nobody did anything. So I guess I'm not sure how that all works. But supposedly it is on the books. You're not allowed to chew gum in Singapore. I don't know. They didn't do anything to me, though. But in Dubai, they don't have any gum on the ground, and it's not because people don't chew gum, period. It's because they mop the sidewalks. Everything is so clean. It's very hot. Okay. In the summer it's really hot. I remember coming to the double doors of whatever hotel that was, and I was at the double doors, and they got a big, nice hotel, right? The double doors, and I could feel the heat coming in on the other side of the double door. I was like, whoa, it's hot. The one double door opens, and then you go step outside, and you're like, whoa. And of course, everything's sand or concrete. They don't really use asphalt. I guess asphalt would just make everything really, really bad, really, really hot. I guess they do use some asphalt, but primarily not so much. It's lighter stuff, and you feel like you're cooking. That is, that's for sure. But I love Dubai. I love the people. I love doing business there. It's a lot of fun. So the title of the show today: voting locations closing early, lost and found ballots, no date needed in U.S. election. Bitcoin is up. A rising tide raises all ships. Will the alt season be epic? Betting odds favor Trump, but poll station workers appear to favor Kamala. Putin tests nukes. That's so there's a little bit more to unpack there that I haven't talked about yet. Number one, Putin has tested his nukes. He came out on, he put out his thing. He says, look, we're not getting in a nuclear arms race here again, but we're going to test our nukes. And, there's a lot of, if you look at these predictions on what's going on, there's predictions out there that Putin actually turns out to be the prince of the world or something like that. Tests. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I have no idea. Who knows? There's no telling what's going to happen. We could all be not even last. So here it is. He goes on and he says, we're testing our nukes. And of course, then they test their nukes. Delivery system, I guess. This should make anybody pause. In a show of force, Putin testing his nukes. I think that the current administration, and actually, Israel and Ukraine and these people, I don't know what they think. I have no idea. Why in the world? What do they want? Nuclear war? Maybe they want nuclear war. Maybe they want assault dead. I mean, I've said that for quite a while. Maybe that's what they want. But playing this Russian roulette of, let's just keep going to war with these people, even though we can cause the total destruction of life. It looks like I'm not sure if that's a different test. Maybe it is, but that one looked like it's in the water, or at least water. So he comes out, he says, yeah, we're testing nukes, you know. Yeah. So that's something that we should all be worried about that. Now, betting odds. Oh, okay. I'm going to touch this. Yeah, I'll look at that in a minute. Betting odds favor Trump, but poll station workers appear to be favoring Kamala. And this is part of the stuff I've been talking about. You know, for most people that support Trump, most of them are working. They don't really like these types of jobs. You know, you could get a poll work. You could go work at these places, but nobody wants to work for those places. It's like the RNC. Like the RNC now. So the chair, who was an ever-Trumper, is saying he's now going to sue some city in Pennsylvania because they closed the voting thing early. Well, again, like, guys, this is like reactionary stuff. It's reactionary. RNC sues. All right, I should just pull it up. And you can say, okay, well, we're getting ahead of it, but I don't buy that suing somebody right now for not letting people get in to a voting place is staying ahead of things, because you still have to go to the courts with the same judges that wouldn't hear anything before. So I don't buy into that. That's getting ahead of it. We're behind it. Getting ahead of it was doing something about it while we had Congress for the last 2 years. Getting ahead of it was doing something about it when Trump was in. But definitely the last 2 years when we had control of Congress, doing something, anything to protect the sanctity of the vote. Now, this is RNC sues, you sent your demand letter. Now RNC sent a demand letter, follows suit. 9 lawsuits. Oh, this is old. Anyway, McCormick area. McCormick joins RNC in lawsuit to stop the Montco mill. I mean, it's just. Here's the worst part about it is that no matter who gets in, no matter who wins, this election they're gonna say it was cooked, and probably gonna have a bit of unrest this week, and that's the other thing about it. We're not even going to get any relief. We're not going to get any relief after the election, because everybody's going to be yelling and screaming and suing and everything else after the election, because they're going to say we didn't have a real election. And they're probably right. For a guy like me who just wants to, I don't know. Anyway, the markets, like I always say, guys, everything will go on one way or the other. Now, World War III is a different story. We could get nuked over here for sure. But overall, whoever gets in, life is going to go on. Now, the other thing I wanted to say here, okay, now we'll all season, and you heard what Matt said, and what I've been saying a lot as well over the time, is that a rising tide raises all ships. A rising tide raises all ships. So if we have a situation where Bitcoin is going to hit 100,000, 150,000, these altcoins are going to rise with it. Now, how much they rise is, some of them are going to, X. Boom, 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 boom. More and more and more and more. And some of them are just going to rise a little bit. Bitcoin's going to outperform them. But if you can get one of those, if you can find one of those tokens, one of those coins that is doing the those flips, I mean, you can really, really do well. Even if Bitcoin right now goes to 150, that's basically 1x, right? So even if it goes to $150,000 in this cycle, which looks like it probably will, then you only doubled your money. Okay. And with a lot of these other altcoins, you can do a lot better than that. Of course, Global Boost Media, right up here in my corner above Thomas Massey. You see our logo. My hand gets lost right up there. But Global Boost Media, our coin, that coin that I had, started about 11 years ago now. I think we're almost at 11 years. We're at 11 years. We're in our 11th year. Is, you look at that and we're cooking stuff, and that can just really go. And these guys, it's not financial advice. These are highly speculative markets. Anything can happen. We could go to zero. Okay. But from where we are right now and where we've been, I mean, I think we're at like a penny or something like that. And, we've been up to $2 or $3. But even in the last cycle, the last push up, I think we went to 20, 30 cents, 35 cents. Wow, 20 cents, guys, is 20x from here. That's, that's money. That is money. Yeah. So anyway, we are cooking on that. So there's going to be more stuff on that. Talking to the crew. There's a lot of energy that's going into Global Boost and going into BSTY, and we're a historic coin. Been around since pretty much the beginning of crypto, before anybody even knew anything. 2013 was our first rendition of the coin. 2014 was this edition that we have right now. But yeah. So anyway, that's it for me today. It is always a pleasure, guys. I love you very much. Love doing the show. We will be back. I'll be back on your TV in 5 hours, and we will be back streaming live tomorrow morning. Cheers.
Your voice is powerful. When combined with social engagement, it's a force for change. Decentralized media paired with free speech is the catalyst for an empowered world and a unified, invaluable ecosystem. Join Global Boost. Become a champion of free speech and help to reshape the future of media.